Well, hi, everybody. My name is Kelly Puente. I'm a reporter with the Long Beach Post, and we're here today with a very special guest. It's awesome to have him with us here today. We have Martin Docherty-Hughes, and he's a member of the British Parliament representing Scotland, West Dunbartonshire, and your hometown of Clydebank, where you were born and where the Queen Mary was actually built. So Martin, thank you so much for joining us today. Appreciate it.
Great to be with you, Kelly, and thanks for the opportunity to talk to you and to talk to folk in Long Beach and across the United States about a really important icon of the 20th century.
So tell us a little bit about your background and your past. So you're from the hometown. You're from the town where the Queen Mary's built, and your father actually worked in the John Brown and Company yard where.
Yeah, he did. My father is an 87-year-old coppersmith. He still has his old welding kit, and my constituency office here at home in Clydebank is actually built on top of the slipway in which, excuse me, built on the slipway where the Queen Mary was launched and built, where HMS Hood was launched and built, where the Queen Elizabeth, which came after the Queen Mary, was launched and built, and where the QE2 was built as well. And later on, the Royal Yacht Britannia all came from here in Clydebank.
And then I believe that the crane that was used to build these ships is still sitting there, and it's kind of like
it is. I mean, it is literally the other side of the building from me. And I had thought could maybe take the computer down there, but it's rather windy in the Clyde sometimes, But yeah, the Titan crane is still there. You can see it online if you look for pictures of it. My family are connected to shipbuilding in this town from my great-grandfather, who worked on the Queen Mary. I think my grandfather would have probably worked on the Queen Mary as well. Oh. And my father worked on the QE2 and on the Royal Yacht Britannia. Like so many people of my generation, our parents, grandparents, and great-grandparents worked in these great shipyards, and a constituency member of Parliament is really important.
And that's a good point. In Long Beach, the ship has been here for so long that we forget the significance and the emotional connection to the United Kingdom and Scotland. I talk regularly with a fan club in Southampton, England, where the ship was launched, and they have people there who worked on the ship. Tell me a little bit about just the importance and the significance in your hometown and the feelings there.
I think it's a real concern that we've got to the situation where we're at, because for us, this is also an issue of heritage, industrial heritage, which a lot of people don't hear about or want to talk about. For us, it's also an element of the conditions in which our parents and grandparents and great-grandparents worked. I mean, we have one of the dreadful impacts of shipbuilding in the 19th and 20th century was the use of asbestos. And asbestosis, of course, gives prevalence to huge issues around conditions such as mesothelioma. Therefore, Clydebank, because of its shipyard history, has some of the highest rates of mesothelioma-related conditions and cancers anywhere in the continent of Europe, not just in Scotland, not just in the UK, but across the whole of continental Europe. So there is a legacy here of great pride in the construction, industrial architecture of the 20th century, the artistry of that design for the people who constructed it. But there is also the living legacy of conditions related to asbestos, which have had a profound social and economic impact on this community. And I think that's where, if you combine those elements of working ethic, or the social impact, the very notion that this great icon is in such serious trouble, really, hits home that the sacrifice of so many people over so many years working on this ship is left to rot. And it's not just about the iconic imagery, it's also about those men and women who were impacted by conditions such as mesothelioma.
Well, yeah, to think of all the people who sacrificed their health and their right to work on the ship and make her who she is today. That's something that we have most people do not even consider or realize. In Clydebank, do people talk? Do people still kind of talk about their experiences in the shipbuilding industry and the Queen Mary? I mean, when we see the Queen Mary in the news lately, do people actually talk about it in town? And
Yeah, I mean, there's a great pride. I mean, I think I would say that MD who was involved in the construction of the Queen Mary, if they are alive, would probably be in their late 90s. So it's mostly today people like my father who would be in their late 80s. So later ships built in the kind of 1940s, 1950s, and 60s, etc. But there is a sense of pride when people talk about Clyde built. They usually mean the ships of Clydebank, what I like to call the real Clyde build. And there is a pride in that, but also a real recognition of the sacrifice of people through the years, through the impact of industry in the 20th century, and then also deindustrialization, which really impacted our hometown in the 1980s and the 1990s.
and what is the town like today? Can you describe a little bit how many people live there? What's kind of the age and demographic?
We like to call it the borough, which for us is spelled Burgh.
Okay.
So
And you're west of Glasgow on the Clyde
yeah,
River.
so we have the great city of Glasgow to our right. We border the great city. We are a borough town founded in 1888. I'm also really proud to represent the ancient borough of Dumbarton, which is further down the river. It, of course, was home to great ships such as the Cutty Sark, which were the great tea clippers of the 18th and 19th century. And the Cutty Sark, you might know the name through whiskey,
Oh yeah.
mostly, you know. So the Cutty Sark was a great tea clipper, and it sits today in London. Like so many of the great ships of Clydebank and Dumbarton, none of them reside at home. They usually reside somewhere else. And then we have going up towards Loch Lomond, which one is one of our most beautiful lochs. We have what we call the beautiful Vale of Leven, which leads up to the Great Loch itself.
Wow. Okay. And really, with the Queen Mary, she's really the last of her kind. Can you think of any other similar ships from this era that are, especially being owned by a city, it's really one of the most unique things in the world right now. Can you think of any other similar?
The only thing I can think of would be the QE2
Yeah.
built here in Clydebank, which is now in Abu Dhabi, I believe, or
Yeah.
Dubai.
It's a hotel in Abu Dhabi. It
Yeah,
looks nice. It's in,
they've done a lot of work. I mean, we can maybe get some of them to come over to Long Beach and hang out.
come out here.
Yeah, so they have the QE2. There is also, of course, the Queen Elizabeth, the RMS Queen Elizabeth, but sadly, she's a burnt out hulk in Hong Kong Harbour. She sailed out there after being decommissioned to become a floating university, and sadly, she caught fire, and she's now at the bottom of the harbour, I'm afraid. I think she was in a James Bond movie once, as they used her for an underwater headquarters for MI5 or something,
Wow. Yeah, just the history of these ships is so amazing, and it's amazing to have it here in Long Beach. I think maybe a lot of people, a lot of people appreciate it, but I think a lot of people don't understand
Well, and as I was saying earlier, I mean, I actually have a bit of the Queen Mary here.
Yes,
In
show us.
So yeah, here we have a part of the deck, the teak deck.
Wow. What's that from? What air? Okay, 2000.
So it's the RMS Queen Mary Foundation, Long Beach, California, commemorates the 70th anniversary of the launch and naming of the Queen Mary at Clydebank, Scotland, September 26, 1934 to 2004. And then there's a crest, the Queen Mary portion of the original deck, 1936 to 1996.
That's awesome. And then you also have the plaque on the wall there from the.
There's a proclamation from the former mayor of Long Beach, who was Mayor Beverly Neal,
Oh,
which
yeah.
was sent to the town many years ago to commemorate the 70th anniversary, and we had visitors from Long Beach came across. I think it was Lavetta Kramer from the foundation
Yeah.
came to Clydebank. We had representation from the American Embassy in London, as well as the Consul General in Edinburgh. They all came through for a celebration here in Clydebank. So yeah, still got a lot of those kind of practicals and nice mementos of those times.
And Martin, with with the ship struggling now and its future, this is really one of the times they've had problems in the past where the future has been in jeopardy, but I think now is probably one of the most serious times of reckoning for the ship and what they're going to do. What would you like to see happen, and what's some suggestions for some possible solutions?
I think, first of all, a recognition of the dire situation. As a parliamentarian, a legislator, I would have grave concern about what, and I only can make this judgment based on what I've read in media reports on what I would classify as, it seems, mismanagement, which is a grave concern given the vast sums of money which were set aside for restoration work and to keep the very fabric of the Queen Mary together. I would hope, and I've said it to correspondents here in Scotland, that I'll be raising it with the American Embassy. We don't have an ambassador as of yet, given the change of administration back in November, but I'll be writing to the Chargé d'Affaires, or the Deputy Head of Mission at the American Embassy in London. I'll also be raising it, hopefully soon, on the floor of the House of Commons.
Wow.
And there's a reason why, because this is, for me, coming from a very working class community. To us, this is an utter disregard for the cultural significance, the historic and artistic value of this extraordinary icon of the Art Deco period, to be built by men and women here in this great borough launched in 1934. It beguiles me as a parliamentarian that it's been allowed to get to this stage. I think I said in the Scotsman newspaper the other week that this is a desecration of a great artistic monument. And as I believe it's a registered monument by the United States federal government, I think it would be a profound dereliction of our commitment to culture and to art to see this slowly sink beneath the waves. And in a time when art and culture are being destroyed left, right, and center across the world, and we've seen some horrendous desecration of great monuments in Iraq and through Syria in recent years, for an icon of working class heritage, which is so entwined by fame and Hollywood and all these types of others who sailed on the Queen Mary, to see that disappear beneath the waves, I think would be a profound dereliction of duty for those who care and understand the value of culture and art to society and to our own well-being and notions of ourselves.
And what could happen if you raise this issue in the House of Commons? Could they issue a official proclamation, or what would happen?
Well, the reason I would hope to do it is to get people, first of all, to recognise the profound danger the Queen Mary is in. There'll be very little that the UK government can do, because it is in the ownership of in Long Beach by the city, and I recognise, and we will all recognise in these very difficult times, that this will be difficult for the city of Long Beach to make decisions about finance. And if anything, I hope it can enable people across the world to start to work together to assist the city of Long Beach, and for Long Beach and for its citizens to know that they're not alone in trying to retain the great value of this. And I'll also be writing to the Cabinet Secretary for Culture here in Scotland, in our own Parliament in Holyrood in Edinburgh, just to kind of reinforce the value not just for the United States culture and heritage, but for the culture and heritage of Scotland. This is an icon of our engineering past, and I would hope that it can remain an icon for our modern engineers, the engineers of the future, and that they will look across the sea and think, we've done it before and we can do it again. These, in a very different way, of course, in the 21st century, but to serve as an icon and for that to be recognised here in Scotland, I think is also extremely important.
Do you see a future maybe where the ship could have a foundation where it has donations from all around the world? Because that's been the one thing. It's going to continue to cost money, and the astronomical sums just in some of the marine surveys, like 300 million to keep it going. The Long Beach eventually is not going to be able to pay for this on its own. So yeah, what do you see that maybe as some sort of international foundation to keep the ship going?
Well, I think there's huge opportunities to learn from others. Excuse me. I think if you look at the Royal Yacht Britannia in Edinburgh, again, built here in Clydebank, sadly, not in Clydebank, the way in which it's maintained, if it sits in a dry dock as opposed to sitting in water. You'll then, of course, have the Cutty Sark, built in the 19th century, a mixture of early steel and wood, which was completely burnt out hulk the other year because it went in fire during a restoration. The Cutty Sark has been completely restored. Now, of course, it's a slightly smaller vessel than the Queen Mary, but with determination, with innovation, anything's possible. You keep hearing from the United States, it's the land of opportunity and innovation, and we'd love to support people in Long Beach to look at the Queen Mary, not just maybe as a historic, but also a learning environment, where marine engineers, even with NASA, with space engineers, you're just talking about different opportunities to participate in its renovation. As if it were up to me, I'd bring her home. I'd put her in Clydebank or right back in the dock.
Across from your office, just so you can see, have a view
across
from
my office. Yeah. And I would say, let's make it a centre for engineering excellence. Let's get people involved from across the world in engineering, and lots of different types of engineering, not just the old traditional skills. And make it a piece of work for the next 40 or 50 years, and make it an ongoing place of learning. Because I think if you're doing that rather than just a tourist attraction, then you're setting up on a good foundation for the future. So I think, first of all, there needs to be partnership working to make sure that Long Beach has all the support and the skills it needs to take this project forward.
Well, thank you so much, Martin. I appreciate that. And it's fascinating to learn about the important history in Clydebank and the sacrifice and the pride for the people there. And it's important for people in Long Beach to know that, there's people around the world that love the ship, and especially in the UK, who care and want to see her survive. So really, really appreciate you speaking with us.
Well, absolute pleasure. And I hope your viewers get some information about this, and that they contact their, I would say, congressional leaders, also their city leaders, to reach out to others in the state legislature. Make a reason for this great ship to survive. Give them a reason to say, yeah, you know what, this is worth putting our shoulder to forward and getting on with it and making sure it retains part of our culture. Again, if I had my dream, she'd be berthed up alongside the Queen Elizabeth and the QE2 and the royal ship, Royal Yacht Britannia. We'd have them all lined up here. But that time has passed, and we really here in Scotland want to make sure that we can do everything we can to support the city of Long Beach in its hope and its endeavour to keep the Queen Mary afloat.
Great. Well, thank you so much. Appreciate it.